Yes, indeed. And he is finally here. Thank you so much for being patient with us and for keeping it locked here on your number one talk station, 95.1 Nigeria Info. My name is Somi, that's SOMI, short for Apena Somi, and I'm taking you on Hard Facts today with my guest, starting with the big three stories in the news. Be sure to join us on Facebook and YouTube, where we are streaming live. Go to Nigeria Info Abuja to be a part of the conversation. Victor Terhemba, very special welcome to you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Somi.
How are you doing today, sir?
Yeah, very good, very well.
Welcome. Victor Terhemba is the programs manager at Ready to Lead Africa, as well as a civil society advocate. And we're going to be looking at some of the biggest stories in the news this afternoon, starting with the story of the suspended school feeding initiative that we're seeing is leaving about 9 million pupils, as well as 250,000 jobs in a state of unknown. Yes, this is as the federal government's national homegrown school feeding program has been suspended. The program's uncertain future with the end of the first half of 2025 threatens the livelihoods of over 250,000 individuals, including cooks, farmers, and other stakeholders who are said to depend on it for income. Before its suspension in January 2024, the program had created about over 34,000 direct jobs for cooks and other staff involved in the food preparation and distribution process. It was said to also indirectly support the livelihoods of an estimated 80,000 farmers, 127,000 food vendors, and 100 aggregators across 30 states. And the scheme was aimed at enhancing the health, well-being, and educational outcomes of pupils by providing them with meals, encouraging school attendance, and all of that. But the current administration suspended it in January. In fact, all programs administered by the National Social Investment Program, including the Homegrown School Feeding Program, after the Chief Executive Officer of NSIPA, Halima Shehu, was suspended over alleged financial malfeasance, and the president later suspended the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs as well, Betta Edu. And even though a panel was set up to review the program in 2024, it's yet to commence 18 months after its withdrawal. The initiative is yet to come back again 18 months after its withdrawal. Now, as far as the panel is concerned, findings reveal that the government has continued to make a budget for the initiative, with 160 billion set aside for the scheme in the 54.9 trillion naira 2025 budget. We're seeing about 100 billion under the service-wide votes and domiciled in the Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning. The Ministry of Education is set to oversee another 60 billion for the feeding of primary school pupils. And so budgetary allocations are still being made. Even though it's at a reduced cost, we're seeing about 100 billion in the 2024 budget, which is a far cry from the estimated 540 billion, which is required to feed the 10 million school children. So, despite the fact that the program is suspended, budgetary allocations are still being made. Meanwhile, there is the impact that it's having on the major beneficiaries of the initiative itself. That's the 9 million pupils and over 200,000 who were beneficiaries directly or indirectly of this. So according to stakeholders, the delayed implementation of the program would have far-reaching consequences, including exacerbating the already alarming number of out-of-school children, with the UNICEF, which the UNICEF has put at 20 million. They're also seeing that it will bring about decreased program participation rates, reduced nutritional benefits for students, and diminished economic benefits for local farmers and communities, ultimately perpetuating cycles of poverty and food insecurity. Victor, just to take your thoughts on this very quickly. It's been suspended for obvious reasons. There were talks of malfeasance, misappropriation of funds, and all of that. But despite the fact that it's been suspended, there are still budgetary allocations made for it. Which would you advocate for? That it comes back, or leave it as it is and then set up a probe? Because we're very used to setting up probes and all of that in this. But what are your thoughts on this? Should this be brought back when you look at all of the benefits that was accrued to the program?
So I think that one good thing we've also tried to do is create, like as a country, is to create an unsustainable economy where we are not supposed to even be the economy in the first place.
I'm sorry, did I hear you say one good thing we've been able to do?
I say one thing that we are good at doing.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
is that we create economies where economies were not supposed to be created in the first place. And this is result of, for like everything you think about when it comes to government policies, you create a market and then it no longer becomes sustainable to, operate. I have been very critical of the homeschool feeding program because I thought that, for example, when you do project management, you understand why you are doing what you are doing. How do you map to show that you are on progress, and then you can record your result and all of those things. And so these were all of my concerns as at then. I'm like, if you are doing homeschooling field program, the primary reason why that was so, it was that we had so many out of school children. And one way to encourage them is that if we give them good meals, right, and at least so that they don't, because most of them definitely come from poor backgrounds. And so what it means that the parents will worry less about feeding the children. If not for anything, the children will go to school and study. Yes, that particular objective actually came up, but I keep asking, so if you had this number of this kind of school intake, enrollment, how many did you retain? How many, progress from one class to the other class because of this and that? And so when you also look at, you look at it and then you think that the overwhelming or the overriding factor keeping children out of school is that they are not getting healthy meal, or, but then there are other factors that are totally disconnected from that. And yeah, so in things like security, so how many students from those kind of areas we go, the kind of environment they live in, what is the economic situations of the parents themselves, even though part of the reason was to take up some economic burden away from the parents in terms of feeding. But then, so when they go back home, what do they eat? So most of them still go back and then, some even actually realize that it is not sustainable going that way. And also the reason, one other thing to also look at it is that, yes, while the program was going on, I used to once in a while come across contact where people are discussing the homeschool feeding program, and they are not discussing it from the angle of when do we supply. It was like, so out of this money that you have received, this is for a vendor or for a cook who is supposed to cook, right?
Yeah.
So the person that got him or her the job will now be asking, so out of this money that you are getting now, so how much are you going to spend so that we get our own share? I've been in a place where somebody got a call and was complaining that she has not been paid. You get? So it is like when you do this kind of socialist program, basically, you in a country like Nigeria, it is always going to be riddled with corruption. We don't have any tracker to measure the success or the failures of that project. For now, how many people can we point to? We don't have like a tracker matrix to say these people went in, these people retained, this is how much we are supposed to achieve. So now we've spent hundreds of billions on the homeschool feeding program. We cannot say what the impact is. And so before the homeschooling program, as at the time the past administration took over power, I think we had about 14 million children out of school. And while the government was in power, implementing the homeschool feeding program, that number raised up to like 18 million. So did the homegrown feeding program really succeed? Did it work in any measure? We don't know. Even the government also doesn't know.
Well, there's data that we see from the government. I think there was one particular one titled "Investing in Our People," and it revealed that the program was feeding over 9 million pupils in over 52,000 schools across 30 states. That's some data.
You are feeding 9 million people. The aim was not how many people exactly you feed. The aim was to improve educational access. that more children to. So if you are feeding 9 million people, 9 million students, how many of them were you able to retain? What is even their performance in school? So that you can make a good case. So now you can't even confuse me as an individual, because now I'm asking this question. So you've done this particular project. What did you achieve out of it? So is it always about the reach or the impact? So in fact, what is the overall goal of the this project?
I mean, you said it already.
Yes.
Bring children
back
into school.
So how did we achieve that? And how do we measure it? And so usually when you leave this kind of gaps, that is when you now allow for entrepreneurs, corrupt entrepreneurs, to now begin to create economies where they are. So the argument around is going to affect 250,000 jobs, right? And I mean, those are actually genuine concerns. The farmers that are going to be affected because they, supply the food, things, right? The conversation always should not be, should government continue in that way, or should we now look at others? Maybe if we want to bring it back, let us bring it at the pace where it reduces the incidence of kind of corruption. And then to the point where we can then begin to divide. If at this moment, is there other place, like for example, farmers, we can divide their products to. We are still a nation that is not kind of reliant on food. You get the point?
Yes, I do.
So my point is that if 80,000 farmers are affected because of that, think about a country that is not self-reliant on food. It means that they still have a lot more work, jobs to do, that their produce from the farm cannot get bad or shouldn't even be to waste. And what can go to waste? We have been talking about, governments having this kind of infrastructures whereby our farm produce can be easily transported or can be easily stored. If that is done, those 80,000 farmers will also benefit from it. Those products where currently you think that they are being affected because of the homeschool figure, they will find other channels. There will be other channels for them to sell off and go. And so in fact, the more you even bring in more farmers to produce, to sell to the country, you're also creating the same jobs.
So you're saying that the argument that it will affect them adversely is not entirely correct?
No, so I'm not saying it's not entirely correct. I'm saying that is not the only way that they can get their product or that they can benefit. There are other ways that we are still lacking behind.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, the conversation continues. It's the Big Three, and we'll be back.
One says I'm beautiful and bold. They say I'm fashionable. And to crown it up, very
Connection established.
Wazobia perfume is available in body spray.
Also available in supermarkets and markets near you. Wazobia perfume, the correct scent.
Welcome back to your number one talk, news, and sports station. This is Nigeria Info.
Nigeria Info.
All right, we're still on the Big Three here with my guest, Victor Terhemba, Programs Manager at Ready to Lead Africa and a civil society advocate. And this time around, we're wondering if he will advocate for or against the bringing back of the homegrown school feeding program, given the reports that after it was suspended as a result of reports of misappropriation of funds and the likes, it hasn't been brought back. A number of people advocating that it should be brought back, talking about the impact that it's going to have, not just on the 9 million students that it was catering to, but also to the vendors, the farmers, and the likes. Victor, you were sharing your thoughts on the farmers and every other person that is affected. We'll come to the children in a little bit, but let's wrap up on that one.
Yeah, so basically, what I was saying about the farmers is that because we have a huge population that also require plenty amounts of food. So the reason why we feel like the farmers will be in that kind of situation that will be affected, that we are so concerned about them, and rightly so, is that we don't have that system, we don't have that infrastructure that might help them to now benefit to the larger markets. You get. So usually what I always think about, even farming agriculture in Nigeria, I always think that there should be a channel where government on its own for now, right? Although I'm not a fan of government being into any sort of business, but then I always feel like government can set the pace, set that as an example, and then hands off letter to other people. So government should have that channel, that network where they coordinate food storage and food transportation, agricultural, product transportation from the very farm. So somebody was sharing a story with me, right? That in a particular community where I can't remember. But what happened is the farmers who farm on a large scale, tomatoes, pepper, all of these things. So sometimes they have to trek miles to get to the express. And so what they do at the express is just sit by the roadside. If you listen to travel by road, you see most of them like that. But because they can't finish, some of them, they can't finish selling their produce, they leave it there and go back home. And then that is waste. Normal. So, but then imagine where there is a system where government does it in a way that these kind of farmers at that kind of level, right, can also channel in their agricultural products in a particular point, space. People just come and collect, they get paid and whatever. One, they won't have to trek all those long distance. Yep. And secondly, the food wastage that we see on the road when you are traveling, we also not be there. There will be more. Till today, you go to the market to cook, right? They count 5 pieces of pepper for you for 200 naira. Just 5.
Meanwhile, it's wasting.
And meanwhile, there are places where it is basically wasting. And you can't even find tomatoes. I think the least you can find tomatoes now is 1,000 naira. And it's about 4 or 5 bulbs.
So basically what you're saying, where conversations around resuming the homegrown school feeding program are being had, for the farmers, maybe not so much, because there are other ways that government can bring in interventions that will help them not to lose out on it.
Exactly.
For the vendors, there's obviously a conversation around job creation as far as the homegrown school feeding program is concerned, because it was able to open up avenues for certain people to either expand on their businesses as vendors or enter into the market and play as vendors. What about the impact on those vendors? Is that good enough reason for it to come back? For the children, I think you've made a number of points already, seeing that really and truly did it achieve its aim and all of that. But is there a conversation that can be had around the number of jobs that could be resuscitated or created again if the homegrown school feeding program resumes?
Yeah, so if it resumes, at least for those 250,000 vendors, I don't think not so many of them will have anything to worry about. And that's because definitely government will most likely still work with existing vendors. Maybe what they have to do is what kind of system of check and balance, transparency in the whole contractual payments stuff that they do. So if it's revived, which means I think that if it's going to be revived, then they must take proper planning to it, to measure outcomes, to measure results and everything and their impacts. And then it also occurred to me that we are having this conversation about jobs, and this is at a small scale. And so if, even though they redefined what it means to be kind of unemployed, it also meant that before, that's reworking a definition, in the actual sense, we had over 60 million people who were unemployed. You get what I'm saying? So if you take 250,000 people out of 60 million people, you'll be left with what, about 59 million people. So we are discussing these job losses at this small scale because we are failed to do the right things. Because where jobs should have been talking about, where we should be talking about, it should be somewhere around industrialization. and not about feeding programs like this. So because when you also look at it, 250,000 is a huge number, but in the larger picture of how many people are employed in Nigeria, it's a drop in the ocean. Yeah. So if the school feeding program comes back, for those food vendors, I think that they will, of course, get their jobs back, and also the farmers too will smile. But then it shouldn't come back in the same way that it was, that encourage corruption, I like the fact that there's a thinking around getting that incentive for parents to send their children to school and keep them in school. The most important thing is that the children don't go to school just so that one meal that they get in a day. How many meals they get in a day? Just one.
Even that is that sustainable?
Yeah. So, but again,
is that sustainable long term? Say they were to review, revamp, plug all the holes and all of that. Even just that whole conversation around, we're doing this to keep children in school. How sustainable do you think that is?
Usually there should be a time frame, but there was no time frame in this particular program or this project. And which is why I said that they didn't really do all of those things that you should be doing as a, before you even start off a project. All of those project management things that you have to do. And so there was supposed to be a time frame. But what usually happens is there's something called this inequality of outcomes. Yeah, so it means that the idea is to keep doing this thing, then the working and children keep coming to school, and then they stay in school. Then it gets to a point where you no longer have to continue with that feeding program. So you just begin to withdraw generally. So now you now see that the culture of going to school is not being assimilated around those, all those areas where that are this mostly affected. So you now see that you have not achieved a particular outcome that you say. So that way, gradually, you now begin to withdraw, and it stops.
But in this case,
so in this case, is that we don't have that clear-cut pathway to that place. So because now, if you have that project, what most people are in, people handling it, the first thing coming to their mind is, this is an opportunity for me to, benefit. And usually, anybody they appoint at any point, that they appoint to head either at the center or subnational or other structures, they first of all go home to go and celebrate. What are you celebrating? They give you hard work, you they go celebrate. And so the only reason why they're celebrating is because they are not looking at the bigger picture of what that project is the program is supposed to achieve. They are looking at the fact that now I have an opportunity where I can cheat the government, cheat the people. Even so, like the other time I was talking about people cutting corners, people not being paid, contractors not being paid, even though this money has been disbursed to who was supposed to. Yeah. Another thing is also the quality of food.
Oh yeah, all that came up, and that is why under the, or rather during the administration of former late President Muhammadu Buhari, it was faced. These are some of the challenges it faced. Sometimes even the food vendors themselves, despite the fact that they were paid, they were absent.
Yes.
And then the ones that were there, the quality of food was a major concern. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the portions of the food was the concern. Before you even have conversations around non-payment and all of that. And then by the time they got into probing it, you saw about 2.67 billion that was earmarked for the school feeding programs in unity colleges during the COVID-19 pandemic was instead found in personal bank accounts. And this, of course, sparked concerns about embezzlement, financial mismanagement, and the likes. So, you've addressed the fact that if they can bring it back, so it's not a case of, for you, it's not a case of just truncate the entire thing. It's, you can bring it back, but do the necessary things, make the necessary adjustments and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
For this purpose of transparency, accountability, cut out all of this corrupt loopholes, so that, and again, have a defined pathway, exactly what you want to achieve and how you are going to measure your activities in achieving these things. So that even with the citizens could actually, look at it. And this current administration has a platform. They introduced a platform. So I've actually forgotten the name, but it's something central. It is actually headed by Hadiza Usman. So the platform is like a central platform to track and monitor the activities, the efficiency or what kind of competency of, every minister and other government appointees, so that they monitor your performance according to your milestones. Central data. Maybe before we go out of here. I'll find it. So, but yet, and that's a very good accountability tool that I think that citizens naturally can also go on that platform and then monitor, track, whatever this person is doing or what other person is doing according to the set goals that the government or even the ministers have set for themselves and given to the government that we'll do this, and then let's see if they're achieving that. So even for the school feeding program, we would like to have that kind of system so that even citizens on their own can track. So you can't just be pumping money and then it was the same thing with like when we were doing markets money. So you come out. So why were you doing why were you doing markets money? To help small businesses and something just came to my mind that is making me angry. But the thing was to help small businesses, market women become bigger, and then you were giving them 10,000 naira. And so at the end, the question was, we are giving this 10 million, 17 million people, market women, 10,000 naira. Okay, so did you go back to check how many of those women? Did the women understand, or those market traders, men and women, did they understand that this money you are giving is supposed to boost your business, or they saw it as their own share of the largesse from government? When the working of former vice president, Yemi, was going about doing this thing, I'm like, the irony, the absurdity in the irony of Nigeria is that as a vice president, you are sharing 10,000 naira so that it can boost the economy of or the business of a small business owner. Your shoe alone costs how much? The shoe that you wore to that market, the bata that you wore alone costs how much? I mean, let's not talk about your wristwatch. In fact, even the clothes that you're wearing, the agbada that you used to wear, you know how much you'll be suing that agbada? And then you dress that expensive. You went into a boulevard of poverty, and then you are giving, say, I want to help you, and then you are giving them 10,000 naira.
How much would have been sufficient enough by your estimation?
So usually it's not, this is how it is. When you want to lift, how I look at it most of the time is that when you want to lift people out of poverty, if I have, you see what Goodluck Jonathan government did with Shopee. That's it. You don't have to go and distribute money. But then, if there are people that have businesses, give them enough funds that support their businesses. One girl came out on Twitter, a lady, and said, gave a testimony of the Shopee stuff that worked for her. She does jewelries and, so she got money from Shopee, invested that money into her business. From her being one person, now employed other people who other people have been dependent on. So even if by now she has like maybe 10, 15 staff, now she has lifted 15 people out of poverty. I mean, so that is how you basically look at it. You look at the trickle-down effect. And so when you have 10 billion naira and then your goal is to now go and share 10,000 so that you reach more people, you will not achieve results. I mean, it is always quality over this in quantity most of the times. Yeah, so because the thing is, let's go back. When they recovered Abuja, this person concerning Abuja's loot the last time, 300-something million. What did the government of Buhari decide to do? Let's share 5,000 CCT, conditional cash transfer. 5,000 naira. And because so this is where sometimes I think that it is deliberate that they keep implementing or putting in policies that make the people poorer and poorer. Because the arguments, the proponents of government were that, do you know there are some people in the villages, do you know what 5,000 naira will do for them?
I mean, I was going to go there at some point. Because even when we were talking about the 10,000 naira, then, because when you look at prior to 2023 and now, inflation, cost of everything. So, I mean, even if they're going to bring back some of these programs, there's also the consideration of just how much more you're going to have to put out or share or invest into it, because you factor in inflation and all of that. When a bag of rice has gone from 20-something thousand at about 2023, if I'm correct, to over 80,000 naira now. So, I mean, if they were going to bring back some of these initiatives, there's also the consideration of just how much they're going to have to put in, and all of that. But really and truly, 10K to the person in the village. I mean, I'm just saying, right? Maybe to the market woman as at then, definitely not now. To the market woman as at then, it would have made some kind of difference, especially if there was monitoring and evaluation and, with some business advisory services, putting there. So, okay, this is how you can use this is how you can use that. Don't you think?
So that would have worked. But then when you're sharing money like that, it was money sharing actually. At that scale, how can you then do that? In terms of the monitoring, in terms of providing that business advice, is not to go and print on pamphlets and then give the women to go and, or these market people to go and read on how they're going to use it. First of all, in the beginning, did they even understand why they were being given 10,000 naira? So, my point is, those who argue that do you know what 10,000 naira can do even for the villages, right? For the women or men in the villages. So please. Okay, I don't know, but you feel that it will do so much for them. Give us one case study, two case study of how much of how that 10,000 naira or that 5,000 naira transformed, their lives. Just one case study.
All right. This is the conversation we're having specifically around the suspended school feeding initiative, the impact that it's had since it's been suspended, with the conversations going on, some people advocating that, it should come back, because the impact it's having is devastating. Some say the longer it stays unrevived, or for the longer it goes without being brought back in, what the government is doing is perpetuating cycles of poverty. So you can weigh in on that in real time. Well, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, following the upward revision of the country's GDP growth forecast from 3.0% This revised projection was contained in the IMF's latest World Economic Outlook report, which it released on Tuesday. It marks a 0.4 percentage point increase from the countries like the UK, which is at 1.2%, Germany at 0.1%, Canada at 1.6%, and the United States at 1.9% in terms of expected economic expansion. Of course, the report comes on the heels of the rebasing exercise conducted by the NBS, which updated the country's GDP to 372.8 trillion naira, or $243 billion in 2024, from the 314.02 trillion in the previous year. Despite the upward revision, though, Nigeria remains the fourth largest economy in Africa, behind South Africa, Egypt, and Algeria. However, the IMF's renewed outlook signals confidence in Nigeria's macroeconomic reforms and the resilience of its economy. The global lender also adjusted growth projections for other countries. China is expected to rise from 4.0 to 4.8. It has the likes of Mexico, Brazil, and the rest. So it wasn't only Nigeria that was factored in to this report. So all of this, places Nigeria expectedly to outpace the UK and others in terms of its economy. Now, given that this is based off of the rebasing, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. Because sometimes we rely on some of these reports and there's a tendency to swing one way or the other depending on how pleasing it sounds to us. I'm sure this administration would jump very much on
Certainly.
this one because it does seem like, it's a commendation for the rebasing that they did. But in terms of, there's always conversation about real impact. But I mean, our economy to outpace the UK this year, this projection is not even for next year, it's for this year. What side are you on?
So, just like you said, if the government sees this, definitely they will, kind of make noise about it to say that it is an endorsement for their economic reforms. Now, yesterday on the show, you guys also basically spoke about the reforms, subsidy removal, energy removal, and all of those things with your guest
Dr. Majid, yes.
Yeah. And on a macro level, yes, we increase, it will increase our GDP. But the thing, sometimes what we confuse about this, it says that at the macro level, your country or Nigeria is economy is going to grow at this 3.04%.
Expected growth.
As expected growth at this because of the policies that you have put in place. So now you're not paying subsidy for energy, which is terrible. You're not paying subsidy for petrol. You've removed subsidy largely on education as well. So now you are spending less, and then you're also selling. So now that even Naira is even kind of devalued to this extent, so you are selling. So now you are selling, and then you are earning more. But in real sense, at the micro level, where it now concerns the citizens, individuals, it doesn't translate to anything. For the individual, it means nothing to you. So why the economy is growing it's expected to grow at 3.04%, signaling that your economy is strong. You can still have inflation in between, and then the cost of living still gets costlier for the local citizens.
How does that balance? How can you have a strong economy with all of those factors still playing in?
So that's why I spoke in terms of macro and micro level. So macro level is just there are things that everyday Nigerians do not really kind of participate in. And
at some point, will it trickle down? What is happening at the macro level? Can it be happening independently of every other level, whatever other level we want to put, macro, mid, micro, and all of that? At some point, is this thing going to trickle down? Because this is the IMF coming forth with this report.
So naturally, yes, it should. But now, one thing I've always learned about Nigerian economics is that you don't follow the conventional way of, like economics, not even the textbook style, because we are unique people generally, so things work differently here. But let me give you a little background, right? About saying that our economy is growing. In 1980, so let's say around 1980, Nigeria GDP, or you want to call it trade. So let's just say working at GDP was around 1.7 trillion thereabouts, so to say, right? As at that same time, countries like Singapore, China, and the Asian countries generally, which is this kind of Asian country included, it includes Singapore, Malaysia, Korea, and the rest. Their GDP and trade was actually below Nigeria. You get? Now, we've had projection that by 2030, some time ago, that by 2030, Nigerian economy will leap above other countries. We had that projection that because our economy was growing during good luck. You hear that, right? Our economy was growing. But at the end of the day, what happened in 2022? While our working on GDP is around, or maybe let's say we even do trade, it starts around $30-something trillion, right? The Asian countries themselves had grown by over 64%. Now, China had grown about 130% in that same time. But in 1980, Nigeria was ahead of this country. So the thing is that when you say you're growing fast, your economy is growing, it does not immediately mean that it will trickle down to anything. So where is the GDP coming from? Are things that Nigerians on a very good day to day, they do not participate in.
So let's look at the examples that you gave, countries that were ahead of, as far back as some 40 years ago, thereabouts. Countries were ahead of. What do you think they did differently?
Industrialization. And then you have to also prioritize. See, for any economy to grow, I don't know how you want to put it or you want to take it, anybody wants to take it. But for any economy to grow, you have to be involved in global trade at a very big level. And so what are you, apart from the petrol, apart from, like working on crude oil, apart from sometimes all these neighbor countries buying a few things from us here and there, what exactly are we expecting? So for those countries, it is always about industrialization. And so they begin to grow. It's intentional. They begin to kind of industrialize, build all of these big factories, begin to begin to innovate, and then they begin to export. So the more you do that, so which I'm saying that sometimes government can just lead the way, or government, most importantly, should provide the enabling environment for that to happen.
Okay. Let's touch on the last story very quickly, and then we'll open up the phone lines. This one, very political in nature. Of course, there's a lot of drama happening with the ADC as it stands. The ADC chieftain just today came out to declare himself party chair and vowed to challenge David Mark's leadership. While that is going on in the ADC, we have the PDP with Dino Melai, former senator representing Kogi West, coming out to formally resign from the PDP, citing the party's inability to provide credible leadership and deliver good governance to Nigeria. His resignation letter was shared on his official X account, dated July 4th, and addressed to the chairman of PDP in Ward 1, Ayeto Rogbede Idrumu, local government area of Kogi State. In that, he announced his immediate withdrawal from all party activities. He said, "I tender my resignation from the PDP at all levels of involvement. It has become imperative due to the lack of potency and capacity for the party to deliver the Nigerian people from the prevailing political cankerworm that has eaten deeply into the fabric of our dear nation." Belai, who once served as PDP's candidate in the 2023 Kogi State governorship election, said he deeply reflected before taking this decision. In his closing remarks, he expressed gratitude for the opportunity to serve under the party's platform. And, that was basically it. The letter concluded. There is no say right now as to where he's going. I would ask Victor to hazard a guess, but that will have to be after the break. But as it is, I don't know. Where is safe right now? ADC, with their own PDP being declared impotent by Senator Dino Melai, and all the drama that is happening across all the parties. We'll come back and talk about that and then open up the phone lines here. It's still the Big Three. Thank you for staying with us, and we'll be right back.
This is Hard Facts.
Hard Facts.
On 95.1.
This is Nigeria Info.